All right, welcome to the New Legend podcast. Today, we have one of our Building a Brand episodes, and we sit down with John Resnick, founder of Campfire restaurant in Carlsbad, California. This is one of the greatest restaurants ever created. I encourage you to go check it out. And we have a great conversation, man. We talk a lot about the business aspect of restaurant, the vision. How do you pull something like that off? How do you grow a team? I think you're really going to love the episode. So thanks for listening. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Haggerty Insurance. Insurance for people who love cars. If you have a car that you care about, it doesn't have to be a classic, doesn't have to be whatever, but it's just special to you and it's not your primary vehicle, give them a call or check them out online. It's very easy to get rates. They have awesome policies that actually correctly and properly protect you and the vehicle you love. So check them out, really easy. It is also brought to you by Kenda Tire. Yes, you guys know, if you listen to the show even once, that we love Kenda Tires. They're friends of ours. They're good people. They care about the products that they build and enabling adventure in everything from your minivan to your Sprinter van to your classic 4x4 to your Scout, whatever. We're excited to launch with them the new KR628. It's an all-terrain tire. As you know, again, we've talked about the KR601, which is the RT, great kind of on the little more on the aggressive side, but the AT, a little more on the street side. So we're excited. We're starting to outfit our vehicles now. So check out the Kenda Cleaver AT KR628. Go ahead, Google it, check it out. And again, thanks for your support, Haggerty and Kenda. All right, welcome to the New Legend podcast. We are here today in Carlsbad, California, at a friend of mine, John Resnick, who has quite possibly, in my opinion, one of the coolest restaurants in the country. Two, actually. I've not eaten at the second one, but yeah. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be
So,
here.
what are your two restaurants?
So we got Campfire, which is where we're at right now, and then right down the street is Jeune Jolie.
Jeune Jolie.
Yeah, so Jeune is kind of our modern French restaurant. Campfire's new American live fire cooking. So.
Yes, and like in June, is it okay if I call it that?
Oh yeah, whatever's easy. People butcher it all the time. I butcher it half the time. So.
But what's really neat about that concept is like kind of you had a vision around like the kitchen and the dining experience being kind of integrated, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so Campfire opened first. Campfire is almost 4 years old, and kind of behind where we're sitting right now, we have an open kitchen, but everything's behind glass. We got a big 8-foot grill back there, so it's all about live fire cooking. Mm-hmm. But we also have a lot of open air here, big garage doors and all that.
Yeah, it's great.
And so you can't have both. You can't have a truly open kitchen and open air. Health department says that's a no-go. So when we did Jeune, we wanted to have a different feeling than camp because it's takes a minute to walk there. They're really close to each other. Wanted to make sure that these were different experiences.
Yeah.
From a culinary standpoint, but also from an experience standpoint.
Yeah.
So yeah, the kitchen at Jeune is right smack in the middle of the restaurant. No walls,
It's
no
cool,
dividers.
man.
Yeah, everybody can you're part of the show when you're eating.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what is the story and inspiration behind camp? I mean, you said open air cooking, but kind of dig into the vibe, like inspiration on it a little bit more.
It's funny. The inspiration for this restaurant was the idea when I was a kid. I'm from the East Coast originally. We would go camping up in the Adirondacks. And I was sitting around. I've been working in restaurants for a long time. And probably about 6 years ago, when I was trying to figure out a concept, I thought about Campfire because what I've been talking about in restaurants to my teams for years and years and years in a variety of places I've worked is about like what we want our restaurants to be, or the places I've worked, is about basically gathering with friends and loved ones and sharing food and drink and trying to create memorable experiences. Mm-hmm. And so that's stuff I've talked about for a long time. And it kind of just struck me like when you are camping, that is really what you're doing. You're with friends, you're with loved ones, you're eating some food, you're sitting around together, and you're creating memorable experiences. And so it was like, that seems to make a lot of sense for an idea behind a restaurant. So let's just make it real obvious. Yeah. And originally my thought for the place was I wanted I wanted to celebrate the spirit of the campfire, not necessarily be eating, baked beans and hot dogs, and
Right,
I want to do something a little different, a little bit more unique. And I was fortunate enough to find some really amazing people to do this restaurant with, and the food became something completely different than what my simple vision for it. And
Right.
But basically, it was like, okay, so celebrate with people, celebrate the spirit of the campfire, and cook with fire. And I worked at a place in college years ago. I was a busser, and we had it was a seafood joint in Newport, Rhode Island, and we cooked everything with like a wood fire. And that food is just so good.
So good.
Yeah, I mean, the flavors are incredible, and it's memorable.
Yeah.
Just in and of itself. And so kind of pulling these pieces together, it was like that's what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate that spirit surrounding a fire. So that's our big, Grace is the name of our grill right there in the kitchen. And then we got a big red smoker. Her name's Grit.
Cool.
Those are two of our founding principles,
Yeah.
Grace and Grit.
I
try
love
to
it.
bring to work every day. So yeah, we're all sitting around here, gathering around the fire and eating some food and drinking some drinks.
How important, you said, like those founding principles of grace and grit, like how, because this is something as a business owner, I probably don't do a good enough job at, like keeping in front of our team. But like, how important are those? I mean, obviously they're important, but how do you reinforce those principles? How do you get those to be a part of the culture of the place?
That's a good question. We talk about culture a lot. One of the first things, actually do a culture meeting with all of our new employees when they start. And when we talk about our principles, so besides grace and grit, we also have growth, community, and optimism. Those are triple G-CO.
Okay, I like it.
GGGCO. And we basically say like what we want those things to define the culture in the restaurant, but culture is not something that I can just dictate and define. Culture, I was told a long time ago, culture exists in the heads and hearts of people in an organization. So it's like the only way to have like the right culture, which I'm sure you know, is first you got to hire the right people.
Yep.
It don't matter what you have down on paper or how much you think you're living your values. If you're surrounded by a bunch of people that don't care and aren't on your same vibe, then it doesn't really matter. So first it's just finding people, and we interview and we ask questions besides just technical skills, but like, why do they want to work here? What is it they're trying to accomplish in their own lives? And what are the kinds of things they like to do? But I guess like for us, we don't always try to hire people who necessarily have a lot of experience. That's not a big deal. But what we try to do is instill in people the notion that like what we do matters. Which I really do believe. I think restaurants matter, humbly, admittedly, but I do think we play an important role in a community, and that's what we're trying to do as creating neighborhood restaurants.
Yeah.
So it's first kind of getting them to care about that and to believe in that and to think like what we're doing matters a little bit more than just serving people food and drink. And so when we talk about grace and grit, those are things where it's like this is a busy joint and it's really hard work, but we're engaged in the business of hospitality. And so without those two things, without being able to like take a licking and keep on going and keeping, cool under pressure and caring about other people and having real compassion, you can't really create a real sense of hospitality. So,
Right.
But I guess, we talk about them a lot. We do try to hire the right people and to live those values as much as we can.
That's really good, man. Really good. Especially, we talk about this on the show. It's like this theme I try to explore. The difference between like having just a business, like making a good or a commodity or a service or something that just is, the purpose is to make money, and like building a brand that like, and I would add to that, like something that is impactful and memorable and enhances life.
Totally.
And I think that's what I felt when I came here the first time, like a year and a half ago, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And do you feel like your employees go, yeah, I see we're making a difference. I see, but it's hard sometimes, man.
Well, I'll tell you, yes, I think they see that and believe it, but I also think like it's way easier for me to do that than it is for you. And I will say, like I noticed, like from the get when I was checking out like New Legend and before I met you, I mean, I love it. You guys do the exact same thing, which is it's not just about a transaction. It's like you're trying to create 100%. An emotional connection in people. And like when you guys talk about driving old vintage 4x4s, and it's like that brings nostalgia and memories, and it's something that is visceral, and you're creating an emotional connection, not just like this is going to get me to point A to point B. And so it's the same thing here. It's like you're not just here just to eat and satiate your hunger.
That's right.
And we hopefully with the same thing with our crew, where they're not just here to make $1. Where we're under no illusion that without those dollars, nobody would work here. And without the food and drink, no one would come here. And so it's like those are the things that you got to do. But then what can you do to like make it that much more? Create like spirit. The reason I said it's easier for us to do is because we see minute to minute the user. And like when we're doing this stuff, we can see and hear from people in real time over and over and over if we're doing a good job or bad job. And if we're making that stuff happen. And I say a lot, like people who work in restaurants, we're the kind of people that need instant gratification. We don't have much patience.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like, I want to know if I did a good job, and I want to know if I did a bad job. I don't want to wait for a Yelp review. If I do something wrong, I want someone to tell me so we can fix it. But if we do something right, it's a beautiful business. You hear a lot of happy people.
Yeah.
And so like our team, I think really does believe that what we do matters because people literally tell us that. It's kind of strange. I've worked in a lot of restaurants, but when we opened Campfire, the first week, I remember sitting outside table 102. We had a guest just genuinely, earnestly thank me for opening here. They were just like, she just said to me, thank you so much for opening this restaurant. Like we really needed something like this here. And it was profound. I'll never forget that. It was just like, wow. I just felt like this is going to work.
That's cool.
I feel good about this. And, I know that I've done this. I've decided to live in certain places of a city based on the restaurants and bars that are around there.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'm not saying this happens every day, but it's like some people have chosen to live in Carlsbad because these restaurants are here.
That's awesome. And like, John, just again, you wouldn't toot your own horn like this, but...
Oh, no, I'll toot it.
Okay, good. But like, I think I don't know the area very well, but you were saying like 3 or 4 years ago, this is State Street or Main Street?
Yeah.
State Street looked and felt different.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Carlsbad is a pretty vibrant coastal surf town.
Beautiful.
And there's a really strong mix of locals and tourists. Like a lot of folks come here in the summer. Where we are on State Street, on this end of it, there wasn't that much when we opened. So much so that 2 months before we opened the doors, it was a Saturday night at 8:00, and I was standing outside, and there was not a soul around, and it really freaked me out.
Yeah.
Like, is this going to work? Where is everybody? But I mean, seriously, it was if you build it, they will come type thing, and more folks have come this way. When you look out the window right now, you'll notice construction all down the street.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we were lucky to be able to do something that was well received by the community, and that's all it takes to start to have an actual impact on a community. Is someone doing one thing that people weren't sure if it was going to work? It works, and then maybe somebody else comes along and wants to do something as well. It's funny. In San Diego, I first moved to San Diego 13 or 14 years ago. And the joke, people would call it Bland Diego. Wasn't too much going on. And I think that was because like this is a really beautiful place. People want to live here no matter what.
Right.
And if there's sometimes a mentality of like, if you just do it this good and it works, then maybe why try harder?
Yep.
And luckily, I think that started to shift quite a bit in San Diego 12 years ago or so. And the opposite is true as well. Like if you do something that you really put a lot of effort into and it works, it attracts more people to do things with more effort. I'm sure you see it in your business as well. It's like, oh, look, there's a, I guess the crass way to say it is like there's a market for this, but it's like that really just means there's people that like this, and like maybe want more of it.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be a good thing.
It's really good. Yeah, I want to get to your kind of your personal story and how you got here, because one of the things that I love being around people, and like even we haven't interacted a ton, but enough like that the same spirit, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but the same spirit that I saw, like your reaction to like the whole COVID thing, I feel like was the same kind of bold, insightful entrepreneurship that probably brought you to see that, to have a vision for this area. So I wonder, have you been a guy like through your life that has made like big moves or just like had a vision for something and kind of went after it regardless of whether you thought it was going to, maybe not if you thought it was going to work, but if others were like, that's kind of not a great idea?
I guess so. I think that I feel confident that if something can be figured out, we'll figure it out. And I mean, I guess I don't know about my whole life, but if I have an idea and I think it's good, I'm not too easily deterred from it.
Yes, that's a big. That's a.
Yeah, sometimes that can land you in trouble.
Exactly, exactly.
Like stealing my parents' car when I was 16. I thought I could really do that. I was not going to be deterred. But that was a problem.
That's right.
But now,
and it's not something you can shut off.
No.
It's
yeah.
like my wife is like, she's amazing, and she balances me out so well. But there's some times she's just like, are you sure? Like I'm like, I don't know if I'm sure, but I just have to see. I have to see if this can work, because I believe it can work.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've got two kids. They're 6 and 3, and I see they're very strong-willed. And I think that, I'm like, I don't know if I can take credit for that, because my wife is pretty strong-willed as well.
Right.
Hopefully we agree on things most of the time. But I think like you think about your kids sometimes, and it's like sometimes that can be a pain in the ass, but you also think that's going to make you a good adult.
That's right.
You're going to be able to survive some things, and and I think that, I guess probably since I was a teenager, I was, I'm the kind of person, if someone says like that's not a good idea, you shouldn't do it, it just makes me want to do it that much more.
That's right.
I remember a restaurant that I was a manager of in 2010. We were opening in Little Italy down in San Diego. And the week before I was leaving my old job, this guest at the bar, I told him where the location was, and he told me, you guys are going to fail. That location is terrible. There have been restaurants that have failed there before. That's not even technically in Little Italy. And I just sat there and, okay. And in my head right then, I was like, there's no way I'm going to let this thing fail. Like
right,
just, right. I'm never even going to see this guy again.
That's right.
But I just want him to know wherever he is.
Right.
And that place crushed. So it was good. But yeah, and same thing up here. It was like, I fell in love with this building. There was nobody else around, but to me, I was like, I kind of like that.
And what was this place?
It's really cool, the story of this building. So there's two parts of this building. The front of the building where we're sitting right now has been here since the 50s, and the back is a Quonset hut that was bought as a kit from Camp Pendleton in the 40s.
No way, cool, man.
Yeah, and so it was a hot rod shop.
It was?
Yeah, in this building was where the dragster race car was invented. It was called Dragmaster.
Wow.
Yeah, so back in the day.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I guess these guys used to rip and race up and down State Street, and there used to be a speedway in Carlsbad back before my time when I was here. But so there's a lot of history here. When we opened, the amount of folks that came in and said, I had a job here when I was in high school, or my dad used to bring his car here. It was kind of cool. It was just like a spirit in the
So when you
walls.
took it over, it was like
It had been a garage right before that.
Wow.
Yeah. So the landlord, the guy who owns the building, is an architect, and he had a vision for it. And I met him when it was, not even under construction yet. And it was kind of what we're talking about. Somebody who's like has a vision, and I really liked what he was talking about. And it was like a week later, I was like, let's sign a lease. I want to do this.
Do it.
So, yeah. And it's been good. And that's why, and we believe in this street. That's why our other restaurant is right down the way.
Yeah, I love that.
I'd probably rather be somewhere where it's like a little bit off the beaten path. People haven't really blown it up yet.
Right.
Because one, I think it lets us create our own kind of vibe for this neighborhood and try in our own little way to define this neck of the woods. So it's been fun.
So let's talk a little bit about, so where'd you grow up?
I actually grew up in New York City.
New York City.
Yeah, and then I moved to Jersey when I was 9. And I bounced around the East Coast, and I moved out here in 2007. So
let's talk about like kind of some of that journey of how you got out west, because I have a similar story.
Yeah.
And that's number one. Number two, how did you, so you said you worked at a bunch of restaurants. Is this your first?
Campfire is the first one I owned.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that decision.
Yeah, I started working in restaurants when I was 16 in Jersey. Actually, my first job was at Johnny Rockets.
Oh, really?
Joint.
Okay.
Still a big fan.
Yeah, me too.
And I went to college in Newport, Rhode Island. I worked at this seafood place that I mentioned earlier. I worked there for 4 years. I bussed tables for a couple years, and then I bartended for a couple years. Soon after I graduated college, I came back to that restaurant just to visit, and I was sitting at the bar, and my two favorite regulars came in. There's a couple in their mid-60s, John and Marge, and they owned a bed and breakfast right around the corner.
Okay.
And they were the most content people I've ever met in my life. They were just satisfied. And I sat at the bar, and I was talking to them. It was really good to see them again. And it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, that's what I want. I want to have a bed and breakfast. That's all I want to do. And have some friends come and stay every once in a while, meet people like who come through. And then I realized I'm 22 and single, maybe bed and breakfast, not the right thing right now.
Right.
And so I basically decided, look, let me go to, I'm going to go to school for hotel and restaurant administration. So
This is post-college or is this pre-college?
this is after college. So it was like a year after I graduated college.
What did you get your first degree in?
In business administration.
Okay, good.
Which basically meant like I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Can I ask you, has that been helpful?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay,
I
good.
mean, I will say grad school for me was the most helpful thing. So
Okay.
I went to grad school at Cornell, and I got my master's it's called the Master's of Management and Hospitality.
Okay.
So it's basically the hotel and restaurant school.
So really, that's your first big move, going from
Yep.
I like what I see
Yeah.
about this couple, about this life.
Yeah, I wanted it, but I'm like, I need to know something about
Yeah,
this.
okay.
And then I thought, all right, bed and breakfast probably doesn't make sense, so I should probably manage a hotel, work my way up to that level.
After grad school.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Because I didn't go to grad school.
No worries.
Did they have you like? Do you do like a build out a concept and like a marketing plan? Like, is that all part of that process?
Yeah, we did all that kind of stuff in
Okay.
there. And I mean, a lot of things. It's the best thing for me about grad school. I was only there for 12 months. It was a 12-month program.
Okay.
Before that, it was a 2-year program. I was the first year they had condensed it to 12 months. So it was a very intense 12 months with
but
no
probably
breaks.
Good.
Yeah, it was good. They basically realized a lot of folks, you don't make a ton of money working in hotels
Right.
and restaurants. And so a lot of folks couldn't afford to take 2 full years off of work.
Right.
And they shrunk this thing, and it was intense. But the best thing about it was basically all of my classmates were into the same stuff I was. They
That's
loved
pretty
restaurants,
awesome.
they
Yep.
loved hotels, and they loved hospitality. And one of the best things about school was basically everything was working with a group. And that was actually one of the things I really learned the most in school was how to effectively work with other people and
Interesting.
not just being like, I'm doing this on my own.
Right.
I did an internship at the Hard Rock Hotel in San Diego
Okay.
when I was in school. So the Hard Rock hadn't opened yet. It was like steel frame under construction. It wouldn't open for another 8 months or so. But I called and I introduced myself. I talked to the GM, and he's like, sure, come out here. My internship, it was only a 2-week internship. This like little thing while we were in school. And I came out here, and they had basically nothing for me to do. They just kind of humored me and let me do this. And so my job was basically, during my internship, was to go to all the local bars and basically take notes, because they were
Really?
going to be opening up these bars in the hotel.
Yeah, okay.
And bring them the receipts. So literally my job for 2 weeks was to go around and drink and like just see what was the coolest stuff.
I think that's pretty cool.
I've texted all my classmates. I'm like, I have the best internship of
That's
all
right.
of us. But anyway, so I got a job at the Hard Rock. So after graduating, that's why I moved out here.
Okay.
And I knew I thought I was going to live here for a couple years, work in the hotel. And then one of the cool things about working in hotels is you can basically go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea was to work here for a couple years. Then I wanted to move to Paris. I wanted to work there for a couple years, and then maybe London, and then maybe somewhere else, and then land back in New York.
And were you more on the hotel side or more on the restaurant
complete
side?
Hotels.
Okay.
That's what I was doing. I had worked, like I said, in restaurants from the time I was 16
Yep.
to 22, I guess.
Okay.
But now it was like, okay, hotels. 2008 came. I got laid off from the hotel in the recession, and in my search for the next 8 months or so for a job, there's this little cool hotel in Point Loma, which is down in San Diego, and it's called the Pearl. It's a 23-room boutique 1960
Cool.
motel. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
there's a restaurant there, and the owner wasn't looking for a hotel manager, but he needed a restaurant manager. So I was like, sure, how hard can that be? You know, I'll do that, and then I'll work my way into the hotel manager job. And I remember 2 days after I started, I called my folks back home, and I was like, man, I forgot how much I love restaurants,
Cool.
because I'd been out of it for a while.
Yeah.
And honestly, it goes back to what I was saying about instant gratification.
Yes.
I was just like amped up, and I basically have been working in restaurants ever since.
Cool.
I still want to do a hotel. at some point.
You do? Okay. I'll be excited to see that.
I mean, I love hospitality.
Yeah.
Like, and you talk about, we were talking earlier before this started about how like a lot of my friends I've met in the restaurants.
Yep.
A lot of your friends you've met, through at work. And it's one of the really cool things about a hotel is you meet all sorts of people who are just coming through, and you get to kind of travel by standing still.
Yes.
And so I still
especially
I still
like in
wanna do
a boutique kind of a hotel.
Yeah.
Because the people that stay there want to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And are seeking that out. So there's likely going to be some shared values and.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and what you just said is very true, I think, for the restaurants as well.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about this with our crew sometimes, that like a cool thing to remember is basically at any given moment, everybody in the restaurant, from your guests to your employees, we all have something in common, which is we all chose to be here.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Like anybody who comes to this restaurant, we're not like like I said, we're off the beaten path a little bit. So like, you don't just randomly walk by and be like, oh, I'm hungry, let's go in here. Most people have decided to come here, or they're following, advice or recommendation from a friend. And so there's already, to a certain degree, like we're kindred spirits already.
That's right.
And same, like you said, boutique hotels, like something similar. It's like, we like this type of stuff. If I'm going to drive a vintage truck, it's because, I like that.
That's
and
right.
we already have some things in common.
That's
so
right.
It's fun
That's
to
a good parallel.
Yeah, it's fun to work in any kind of business or brand where the folks that are doing this are doing it because it's like an actual desire, as opposed to just like a commodity they need.
Yeah, that's right.
So I knew like from the get that I would not want to work at Marriott or a Holiday Inn or something like that, which is not to knock those places,
right.
but it's like I want to work somewhere where people are, this is like something that they're choosing. I guess for a long time I really thought that life is short and we shouldn't waste time. And so like the reason I decided to go to grad school after meeting those, reconnecting with those folks at that restaurant is I was just like, I want to do something I really want to do. And I don't want to waste my time or only live for the weekends,
That's right.
I want to like enjoy what I do. And so that means I want to be around people who are at that moment enjoying what they do. Being like, I want to be in this restaurant eating, I want to be in this hotel. And it's fun to be around people who, I mean, not like everybody every time is having a good time,
right.
But for the most part, it's like you're around joy, a lot, which is it's really cool.
Yeah, I think as you're talking, I've not really seen such a strong correlation between, I don't know what you call it, like a boutique or an experiential restaurant,
right.
And like what we do in vintage 4x4s.
Yeah.
There's so many parallels because we say this all the time. You can get from point A to B in a minivan,
right?
But there's just something different about doing it in an old Scout. I was just talking to my friend, Scout guy from LA that just drove him. He has a 6-year-old and a 3 and 6, I think.
Yes. Oh, cool.
Drove him from LA to Moab in his Scout. Nice. I'm like, not a lot of talking. In his 63, like old school Scout with a modern diesel engine. So he's like, we're doing 80. It's like, we got earplugs in. It's no AC. And it's like, it's memorable, man.
Right.
He's just like, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Then the funny thing is, he said his wife, she was like, how about we just follow you? We'll just follow you in the Yukon and we'll meet you in Moab. And he's like, no, we got to do this.
Yeah,
and like they all loved it. So
that's great.
It's very similar. And again, I know this is like probably a selfish perspective, but during like the COVID lockdowns in Iowa, at least, pretty minimally impacted at a broad scale, but our restaurants and bars shut down. And to what you said earlier, of the placeholder of good places to eat and like how much of a part of community, like we felt we could go to the park, we could go outside, but just simply we like to go out to eat,
right? And
we're like, why are we so agitated? Like we just feel so isolated, even though we're having because we just love that scene. And so I appreciate that and agree how much
these are community gathering places. Like that's what restaurants are. I feel like a lot of time, you were talking about like the experiences, but a lot of times at these restaurants, it's like we don't even know why we're going out. But it's about like community, and it's about like seeing other people and like seeing smiling faces and hearing laughter. Like we're very social beings.
Yeah, and the energy, you just pick up energy from the room.
So it's like you crave that and you want to be somewhere and be enjoying food and seeing all these other people enjoying it. It's like a very special feeling. And I thought that, when the restaurants, when we were forced to close, we actually closed 2 days before we were told to close, just because we were trying to figure out, how do we keep people as safe as possible? And if we weren't sure we could do it, then we decided to close. But we were, I guess my optimistic hope from the closing was maybe people will recognize a little bit more how important restaurants are and how connected we all are, all this stuff. Like, what's the glass is half full on this? And it's like, hopefully people treat each other with like a little more tenderness and recognize like the things that we have in common and all that stuff. There's obviously a whole lot of bad stuff going on too, but I think that, I miss restaurants, not just like working in them. Like, I miss going to restaurants with my family, with my friends, it's like, it's hard to replace.
It really is, man. It's such a big part. It's like an overlooked, like underappreciated piece of our culture that is so good. And what I love, it transcends culture. It's not like you go anywhere in the world. You can go to the smallest village in Cambodia and like the local restaurant is like, that's the place people gather and go. And, and there's that same vibe. Like, people are smiling, and I will add, when the food is super good and the service is super good, it really enhances that community aspect.
Totally.
Because that's what I love about here. Like, it's been rare, man, like that I've had a restaurant experience where everyone's just like, oh, dude, that's so good. And then, like, and you just feel it at the table.
Right.
Everyone's like,
well, I feel like not everyone, but for the most part, if you go out to a restaurant, you want to have fun. Like, you're already kind of primed. You're primed because like you want to enjoy your time.
Yep.
And you want to enjoy the food and the drinks. And so you're primed, you're ready. And so if the stuff's good, then you're like feeling it. And that's also the problem when it's not good. You're just like, man, like I was ready to go. This is what I wanted. Even like subconsciously, like, it's what we want. I think we tell our team all the time, it's like, this is teed up for us. People are coming in here, they want to have fun. Every once in a while, you're going to have someone that coming in here, basically all they want to do is not have fun.
Right.
I don't know, maybe they got a bad boss and now it's their turn to be a jerk.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like folks are coming in because they want to have a good time and a good experience. And that's, if you're like present to that and aware of it, it's really amazing. There's this guy, restaurateur named Brian Canlis. He owns this place, him and his brother, his folks. He's actually a third generation like restaurateur. His family's owned this place forever, called Canlis in Seattle. And he said at one point something I really loved, which is, he said, I love the power that restaurants have to make people feel like turning towards each other is better than turning away. And it's something that I think about a lot in these places, which is like, you have all these people who just find ways to talk to each other. Even like our tables are pretty close together in normal times. Not right now. And it's like, one of my favorite things is to look over and see, strangers talking to each other. And just like hanging out, or people at the bar. And it's like, that's it. Again, it's hard to replace. It's hard to find that elsewhere. We're not too inclined to just start talking with the person in front of us in line at the grocery store, or
that's right.
It's like, these are one of the few places where you're just like, you can just talk.
Yep. So food good. Is a good thing, but also like the service completely sets, because you can have great food and like snotty people, or just like, that's terrible to say it that way. Because one thing I know, I worked in the restaurant business. I've been in I'm in a public, like when people come visit our shop's not really often, but like we're busy building trucks. And so like you have to shift gears to go, hey, customers coming in. Like, one perspective is, like we could be getting work done on these trucks that we're overscheduled on. Right. Or B, you have to just shift gears and go, like, this person came out of their way to come here. Right. I'm gonna like talk to them. I'm gonna be super cool. But just that tone is so important, and it's so difficult because like you have 100 employees.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. That's awesome. But they all have like lives outside of this.
Right.
And like, you're not really allowed to have a bad day.
Yeah.
In the restaurant business.
Yeah, so it's hard. You got to check that stuff at the door. One thing we say, we talk about that with our crew, is like, we don't really want someone, if you're having a bad day and you're coming to work, that's okay. And we don't want you to pretend that you weren't having a bad day, but it's like, if we're all doing our collective jobs right, then like this can actually be the best part of your day. Like
Yeah,
coming to
that's-
work
that's
could
a
be
great
like,
perspective.
oh look, there's cool people that I work with. There's a bunch of cool guests in here. Like I'm proud of what this place is. So like you could be having a crappy day and then come in here and like hopefully this place can actually help turn it around for you if you're like willing to try to let it. Yeah, I mean, that's why we say we're in the hospitality business, not the restaurant business.
Interesting.
Is because like this is
good.
It's a people business. The food, I always think of the food and the drink as like a means to an end. Like we very much focus on those things. We
Right.
obsess over the food and drink. Like the amount of training we do is absurd. We care about it so much, but it's also like what we're trying to do is what I said earlier, which is create memorable experiences for people and to have, like, we want people to have fun. We do that by providing them really good food and drink, but it all means basically nothing if they don't get a sense of hospitality. And I guess the way we define hospitality is really simple. It's about making people feel welcome. So like we want folks to feel like they belong here. You know, whether you've been here 20 times or it's your first time, it's up to us. And the only way you feel that is through the people who are working. Like, let's make this person feel welcome, feel like they belong here. And it's also kind of our business plan, because if they do, they'll probably come back.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
where you feel you belong is where you tend to go back
And have
to.
you seen, it's got to be a proud moment when you see one of your servers like giving, like owning that and like making that happen.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is, I see it every day.
That's awesome.
So, you know, we've been closed. We were just closed for basically 3 months. We brought our team back 2 weeks ago. And we clearly said to them, like, you are the restaurants, you know?
Wow.
We were just closed for 3 months. Our employees weren't here. The restaurants are nothing, you know, they're just boxes. And they look pretty, but like, they're just boxes that without the people working in them, they literally do nothing. They serve no purpose. So like the restaurants are the people, and we don't teach them scripts to memorize or anything like that. It's like, we want them to be good people who care about what they're doing. And then like, we'll teach them a bunch of information and let it go from there. But I mean, I will share, this isn't tooting my own horn, but I will say one of the most like amazing experiences came from this COVID lockdown. So we had to close. We closed, like I said, a couple of days before we were mandated to, and we were hoping we were only gonna be closed for 2 weeks. It ended up being almost 100 days, but it was a really gut wrenching when I had to lay everybody off. I mean, I laid off between both restaurants. We have like 130, 140 employees.
Wow.
And laying everybody off was one of the most like painful experiences for me, because I guess for me, it's like I felt like we talk so much about family and hospitality, community, and I felt like, was all that bullshit?
That's
you know,
right.
am I just like cutting these people loose? And it was like gut wrenching for me. And obviously I knew that wasn't the case, but I just really hoped that my team didn't think that they were expendable.
Yeah.
And we started doing, the managers and I and the chefs, we started doing to-go food pretty quickly. So we had to lay off basically all of our team, but about 6 of us stayed and we're doing some to-go food, and, you know, it was okay. And our team, a bunch of our employees surprised us, basically. They all gathered in the parking lot. One of them came over and was like, hey, come outside. And so we all walked outside, and were all in their cars, holding up signs, cheering, honking their horns, and just like applauding us. And I cried like a baby. Like we were all just like crying, and it was like so emotional. And for me, it was because I think it struck me a lot, because it was like, I had their support. They knew they had my support, but it was like, I had been so fearful that they just were like, oh, that's cool. We're laid off. And they were still there. And, you know, because like we care. It's more than just coming into work for us. The thing that I want like the most, like we talk about like not wanting to waste time, you know, like having a job that you care about. We say to the team all the time, and it really is true for me, it's like whether they work here for 1 year, 2 years, or 15 years, I just don't want this to be a waste of their time. I hope that like 20 years from now, they can say, oh yeah, for a few years, you know, I worked at this really rad place in Carlsbad, and it was super fun, and I met all these great people. Like, sweet, that's good enough. And I want to be a place that when folks ask them like, what's the best place you worked? I want to be the answer.
That's
you know,
good,
because I want them, you know, this is kind of like a random thing, but we every year on our anniversary, which is in September, we all go camping together.
Cool.
So there's like this little,
rad.
there's a beach, 5 miles from here. It's like a South Carlsbad State Beach, a campground. And so we rent like the big
group area.
The group area.
It's amazing.
And it's so much fun. And so we do that every year, and it's just like, we'll do that forever, and it's
awesome.
It's one of those things where I'm like, man, those are like the best moments for me is when we're there together, and there's like, it's no work. No one's anyone's boss.
That's right.
And we get to just hang out, and it's a hell of a good time. I look forward to the days we can do that again.
Yeah. So I did want to talk about that because as a business owner, like fellow entrepreneur, I was like so impressed from a distance, like how quickly you guys pivoted with COVID. Like you came up with the Camp June thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then like, we're going to the Caribbean, we're going to Spain. Like that was just so creative. And I was like, again, in a weird way, like really proud to I know that guy. Like that's awesome. Yeah. So you said it was the 6 of you guys. Were you able to, was that like, well, 2 things. Number one, I think it's very important for the community to go like, hey, we're still in this together. We're still, did you sense support from the community?
Oh yeah. I mean, we literally sold like 300 dinners a day.
Crazy.
Doing that. We only did it a few days a week, but yeah, I mean, so we started Camp June. It was the combination of the 2 restaurants. We were able to pivot to that really quickly because we had already been planning it. We thought we were going to do it while we were open, but also do that for all the folks that like didn't feel comfortable going out anymore.
Okay.
And then we were like, actually, we're going to close. Let's just do that. And we did that for about 3 weeks or so. And then again, it was like, is this even safe for us to be doing? I didn't want to continue to put my managers at risk. I didn't know what was going on. So much was so unknown in March too about this whole thing.
Right.
And so we stopped, and then like a month later, we started back up, and we called it Jolie Fire.
Yes.
And that was what you're talking about. So Caribbean and Spain. It was basically our way of pretending we were on vacation.
Yeah.
And it was also kind of a way for us to beta test concepts, like future concepts. Like maybe we'll do a Spanish restaurant. Let's do that. See how people like it. Let's do a Caribbean restaurant. See how people like it. And it was awesome. It was just like fun. We made custom playlists on Spotify and gave people like little cards that had the links to the playlist so they could try and feel some sort of restaurant experience while they were home, like eating the food, listening to music, hanging out.
And then you I noticed like, am I correct? Like you made a tweak where like they were cooking it at home.
So that's the way basically all of it was the whole time, which was like we wanted the food to be. I mean, that's the problem with to-go food is by the time you get home, it's just not that good. And so those are lessons that we're actually now going to carry forward normally, which is basically it's food that is made for you to reheat, put together, finish. I mean, provide instructions.
I love that.
It's like 10, 15 minutes of work maybe. And you get to eat like really good food. And we also get to sell cocktails to go now, which is pretty rad.
Cool, yeah.
So that was one of the things
that's cool.
ABC, Alcohol Beverage Control.
Yeah.
They stepped up pretty early on.
So before you couldn't do that?
No, you can never sell booze to go.
That's cool.
And hopefully that stays with us.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty
amazing.
special.
Yeah, it made the whole thing that much more fun. So
now, were you able to like? You started with the 6 of you, like through that, were you able to kind of start bringing a couple more?
No, we never brought anybody else back on intentionally because it was like I don't want to put anybody. These were like it was like we're all basically down to do this, but we didn't want to ask anybody else to come back. And honestly, there was no reason to because they were making good money on unemployment.
Yes,
and it was like cool.
That's
they're
helpful.
Safe. They're getting unemployment. If like people were struggling. That would have been different. And that's also something we did in the very beginning as we started a GoFundMe. So we actually raised $30,000 for our team. And we basically, so $30,000 is a lot, but if you divide it amongst 140 people, it's not that much.
Right.
So we basically set it up like a grant system. So if there's like an online form.
If there was some need.
If they had a need.
I love that,
if they had emergency or anything like that. And we basically gave away $12,000. So we still have like $18,000 left basically that we told our team when we reopened just now, we're like, we're going to keep that fund accessible. And if people need it, they submit it. There's like a board, it's all the managers and myself. And we just talk about each request. And we'd never not granted any of them.
Of course. That's amazing.
Yeah,
man.
it's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
And we'll keep that going. And, I'm sure we're going to need it again.
Yeah.
But it was nice. So folks, the main reason people needed it, unemployment was great, but it took a long time for people to get it.
Right.
So needed, cover rent or cover some phone bills or someone's dog needed to go to the vet. So it was nice to be able to have like a security blanket for the team. So they were making money on unemployment. We had the relief fund. There was really no reason to say like you should come into work and do the, we definitely had people asking and saying like I'll volunteer, but it was like that's awesome, but no thanks, we're good. Like we got this covered, just us, and there was no need to. It was also like we're kind of quarantining us as a team.
That's right.
It was like there's 6 of us working. That's gonna be it.
That's kind of how my shop, like in the heat of it, we were just like, we're not really in a lot of community outside of this community.
Right.
So, because we just got to keep working.
Kind of trying to wall yourself off a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, but it was tough, man. Like, and we tried
Dude, I can't imagine.
It's something that we do. We have private Instagram accounts that are only our employees have. And so we would like record videos and post stuff and like try to keep connected with them. Cause it was 3 months. Just like a lifetime.
Right.
And we wanted to make sure people didn't feel like they were forgotten.
Yeah, these are great lessons, man. Because my team is like, we have about 18 people. And it's easy just to assume that like they own the vision. Because I walk around every day and I talk with them. And it's easy to assume they're connecting with each other. But I could see like how you've instituted some discipline around culture and creating community. So we have 140 people. Yeah. That's a lot of people, man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not as a sexy thing to talk about, but we also have a culture of accountability, which is like we're accountable to each other and, to the restaurants as a whole. And so like everyone's got pretty high expectations of each other.
Yeah.
Which helps the whole thing kind of keep chugging along.
Yeah. So a couple of questions. So I've always wondered this, and I've never had anyone talk to about it. But do you guys do like collective tips or do you do individual tips?
No, yeah. So we're a pooled house. So yeah, collective.
Okay.
It's always been like that here. And it always will be. I've worked at a lot of restaurants to have like regular, tips. You just keep your tips. And it's kind of crazy because those systems are set up to reward selfishness. I mean, honestly, it's like, those are my tables. I'm going to get all that money. Even though I like my colleague over there, I don't know if I'm not really incentivized financially to help him because I want this table. And, it's like, it just is dumb, honestly. Like, it's just the way it's been forever, but it just doesn't make any sense. So for us, it's a pooled house. Everybody shares. And the other thing that does is it basically makes everybody kind of closer to like a salary position, meaning like, because it's spread out. So you don't have those peaks or valleys.
Yes.
So like you basically know how much money you're going to make.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you find that to be true.
Oh, 100%.
Like it's pretty.
Yeah, because normally you could be like, oh, I made $400 tonight, but like I just got screwed on a couple tables. I only made $50.
Yep.
And it's like now it's just going to be even. You're not going to have those like crazy highs because you're splitting it with the other 30 people who are working.
Yep.
So yeah, like that's what we do, and it is like I think one of the most important things that you could possibly do in a restaurant.
Yes. And how does that impact? You talked earlier about accountability. Because I know on my team, like if one dude is like just obviously slacking, it doesn't it's like very slow to financially impact the other people.
Right.
Because it might be like,
that's another reason to do it for us, which is like, you got to hold each other accountable, which doesn't mean like we want people giving each other a hard time for someone dragging ass. But it's like
the tip police.
It's kind of more like you are accountable to your colleagues. So we don't really have people dragging ass, but it does mean when we hire someone, we do get feedback, which we solicit, we want from the rest of our team. Like, how are we feeling about this person? How are they doing? And
really?
That doesn't mean they're going to crush it right away.
Right, but that's good.
Yeah, we're all in it together. So it's, we always say like as managers, and I think we kind of said it earlier, it's like the people we hire is the most important thing. And if you have a really good, strong group of people who are good at their jobs, who care about the culture and all that stuff, it doesn't take much to screw it up. A couple wrong people, one person who's just complaining or talking trash. And it's just like, so I think one of the things also with accountability is we need to recognize when someone's not the right fit and, make a change. Just give them some like, correction, be communicative and tell them what we need. And if it doesn't work, then we got to get rid of them. It sounds cold-blooded, but it's like the accountability is to the rest of the team.
And you can do with this big of a team. The reality is that has to happen pretty often with new people.
Yeah.
Just learning the culture, learning hey, this is what's acceptable.
Right. We're like we do pretty long interviews because we talk.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not,
good.
we don't just let the person talk. We also want to make sure this is the right job for them. Because
Right.
a lot of restaurants don't ask as much as we
Yeah,
do,
that's
so.
right. No, I'm really bad at that. Like, because I'm such like I'm a kind of a people guy. Like, I'm with you. I'd rather hire someone with the right work ethic and attitude, and I see opportunity, even if their
Right.
skills are lacking. But you never know if the aptitude's just not going to be there, especially with a craft like working with your hands.
Right.
Or
Yeah, it's hard.
Now, how does that shared? What do you call it? Shared tip?
Tip pool, yeah, pooled house.
Pooled house.
Yeah.
Does that go to your kitchen staff as well?
Yeah, it does now. It used to be illegal, actually, to mandate that tips be shared with a kitchen. You had to have interaction with the guests. So we would have a suggested, basically, amount that go into the kitchen. And now it's just, it's part of it. They're in it with us. So,
That's got to change. Because I worked at a restaurant when I was 16 at a country club. It was kind of good memories, man. It was good times.
I bet.
And I started as like a dishwasher. Then I went to like sous chef making salads and stuff like that. And then I was only 15 and I got like burned in the kitchen pretty bad. And they're like, you're not supposed to be in the kitchen, so let's make you a waiter.
Perfect.
Yeah. But I remember like kind of like the kitchen was against the servers are against the like everyone's blaming each other.
Very divided.
Yeah. So how does that must affect the culture in a good way to bring cohesion?
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. I mean that's the thing about like pooling the money is you don't want your team thinking about money while they're working.
100%.
I mean, that's basically it. Like
That's
if you're
good.
focused on like the dollars you are or are not getting, that can suck. So
That's
it's like let's
really
get
good.
that out of the way, and then we can focus on like cool stuff.
I like
And
that.
like doing things, like I said, our camping trip and many other things. It's like we try to make our teams like they hang out with each other, they know each other, and everybody respects each other's positions. We also do this thing every once in a while when we're able to do it, where it's basically like you walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Like we'll have a server go and work with someone in the kitchen for a little bit.
I love that.
So a lot of that is also about conversation and we always say like the root of hospitality is empathy. It's being able to like understand how someone else might be feeling, putting yourself in their shoes. You can't really be hospitable without that. And so we have to we remind our team, hospitality doesn't just mean hospitality from us to our guests, but also for each other.
That's good.
And so like being hospitable to the people who have different jobs. I mean, it's human nature. Everyone thinks they have the hardest job. You know, my job's the hardest one. And it's like everyone's job is hard.
Yeah.
And they got different ways, different things are tricky about it. So we try to have people empathize with each other.
Do you believe in the general? I know we got to wrap it up pretty
No,
quick.
good.
They're getting ready to have service.
They're pouncing on us.
But do you, being in this business, do you believe in the generosity of people? Like, do you see that? Like when they come in, like people are appreciative and they demonstrate that in the way that they're generous with their tips.
Yeah, I believe in the generosity of people. I believe that like inherently people are good. Like I really do. I also believe that last night, a week and a half after we opened, someone tried to steal a piece of art by the bathroom, steal our bell from the kitchen,
What the heck?
and 2 candles off a table. So I also believe that people are assholes.
That's right.
But, you know, it's like, I think that there's very few people who want to just make other people suffer. You know, like they might do it, but like we try to even have empathy. We talk about this a lot. Like it's really easy to be hospitable to the coolest people who come in. You come in here and you're stoked on this place and you're like super nice. Very easy to be hospitable to you and be like, this is awesome. The guy who comes in here who's like cranky, maybe being rude, it's harder to provide hospitality for that person. But if we actually care about it's not just lip service, then like we're obligated to. And it's like, let's make that, this person is obviously not happy, you know, because of something. Maybe it was something in their life, in their day, their work, who knows? And like, but they still chose to be here. Again, I don't think too many people are coming out who want to not have a good time.
That's right.
But some people, you got to help them find the way. And
That's
you know,
great.
so it's like, it might be a bitter pill to swallow sometimes, but it's like, you know, yeah, it's that generosity spirit. Like you got to provide it. You can't just be like, I'm only going to be super kind to the people who are kind to me.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah. And I asked just because it's easy to get, like I was talking to this ex-pastor of a church and he's like, I got to the place, man, where I just hated people.
Yeah.
And then I started hating God.
Interesting.
So like when you're just in it with people and you're like that instant gratification is again, you say like it's a positive in it, but it's also like
It's a double-edged
you're getting
sword.
direct feedback. So for you to still be optimistic, still to be stoked on this, like says a lot about. I mean, it says a lot about the place you've created, but also like people like gives you hope for humanity.
Yeah, it can. I mean, I really think it's a matter of. Meaning, like, it's a matter of perspective. Like, it's really easy to focus on the negative.
Right.
We could have 80 people in here who are all just grooving and having a good time, doing their thing, and then have 2 people in here who just are terrible. And it's so easy to just think about those 2 terrible people, and like you had this god awful experience with them, and like they made you feel terrible, and it's hard to shrug that off. But like, it's the perspective of not pretending that didn't happen.
That's right.
But like, what can I learn from that? But also, like, what about the 80 other people in here who are stoked? And like, the perspective has to be on, like I said, optimism is one of our values, and it's like that doesn't just come naturally to everybody. You gotta like be
that's right.
optimistic, and like be like, even if that person was a jerk, like, did I do something to help to cause that? And if I did, then the optimistic thing is like, what's the lesson I can learn to not do that again? And if they, were a jerk and I don't think I did anything, like having the empathy and the optimism to be like, they're probably a good person, but just something happened to them. And like, I'm going to not just be like, screw that person, I don't care about them, but like, all right, that sucks, but hopefully he's got, and not be naive about it. Like, oh, well, let's all hold hands. But it's like,
especially not now.
Yeah, exactly. Not now. Elbows. But, but being able to stay focused on moving forward. And like we talk about COVID, that's like the whole thing for me right now. It's just like, expect the unexpected, be flexible, and just like take it day by day and like try to find, we sent a message out to the team yesterday. It's like the restaurant for, Campfire right now, for example, we've got like half the people in here than we normally do. Tables are 6 feet apart. We're all wearing masks, and it's easy to look at that and be like, this sucks. It's not the same as it used to be.
Right.
But like we talked yesterday, it's like, find the things that are the same. Look at all these people in here who are super stoked on the food. Stoked. We're back together, like it might not be the same, but it's still something. And like, we are on the path. It might be, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but like, we're on the path to a better place. And like, I'd rather do it together than alone. So
that's really good.
You got to focus on that stuff.
I was like on this long trip. We've been in California for like 9 days or something like that. I was able to surf every day.
Oh, nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And my 15-year-old son got to take him surfing every day. And but just about that optimism, like he's like, I'm like, remember that day when it was like windy and kind of small and we didn't catch any waves? I'm like, that was still awesome. I was out there with you. He's like, no, that sucked, man. It was terrible. I'm like, no, you got to. We're in the ocean, dude.
In the ocean.
We're together. We're like father and son. Like, So but it is like, you gotta coach people.
Yeah.
Who are not maybe, because I think probably you and I are very naturally and inherently optimistic.
Yeah. I will say, I feel like I'm naturally optimistic, but I can also get in my grooves where I'm just like seeing the negative, being the guy who's like, there's no waves today. Actually, that's one thing I am pretty good at is like, since I'm a terrible surfer, I'm like, I'm just happy I'm out here. Whatever happens, I don't care.
And it's probably true. The worse you are at surfing, the more like stoked you are.
I don't care.
That's right.
But it's like, it helps if you surround yourself with the right people.
That's
but it's funny, you talk about your kids. It's like, I mean, you know how it is. Like, my kids are real small. Like, they see everything's a meltdown, and this is the worst day of my life. My daughter says all the time. I'm like, literally nothing bad has ever happened to you.
That's right.
But it's like, for all of us, it's like, it's perspective.
Okay, last question. You mentioned you have this really sweet Sprinter.
Yeah.
Had it for five or 6 years.
I've had the Sprinter for like 3 or 4 years.
Okay, 3 to 4 years. It's awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Is it kind of like kitted out at all on the inside?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, we've got like a platform bed in the back.
Okay.
We did like flooring installation.
Nice.
And we got the ladder, the rack. We got like the like a ride improvement package, like new suspension and shocks and all that jazz.
Good. So here's my exhortation. So I heard you say like, we've gone camping a couple times.
Yes. Yeah.
So the exhortation is, especially as just an entrepreneur friend, because it's like, just like you have to choose to like infuse the culture into this place, you have to, like, I've just found it critical. And it's easier for me to say because my job is intrinsically connected to taking adventures with people.
Right.
But just to take that time to go like do stuff with get your family outdoors. It's like there's so many things around just changing the scenery, a little bit of like a little bit of uncomfortableness.
Oh yeah.
Like creating memories. So
Yeah, so true.
gotta do it, buddy.
I mean, it's why we bought the Sprinter, was to be like, let's make it easy for us to go camping.
Yeah.
Like we got this thing, boom, we can just go. And we've gone like a handful of times. And it's so hard, man. Like it's so easy to just get in I got to do that soon. But I got this going on at work. I got this going on at the restaurants. And
For
you're right.
sure,
You
dude.
got to just be like,
You got
"No,
two
we're doing it."
restaurants.
Yeah, but it's hard. I have two restaurants, but at the same time, like if I'm being honest, I could do that, except for now in the time of the apocalypse. Other than that, I got a great team that runs these places, and like I can do it. And it's just a matter of doing it, And you're absolutely right. Like it's easy when you got kids to be like, well, they're small, soon, and it's more important to do it later. But it's like, I want my kids to have those experiences now.
They have to, because like what I find is like friends of mine, especially dads, who are like they just got a scout and they're like, I want to do this, but their kids are like 15, 16. It's like they kind of missed. It's never too late.
It's harder to start.
It's harder because the kids are like, why would I want to sleep outside? That's stupid.
Right.
But when they're little,
it's part of your childhood.
Yeah, and it's like I remember that was even if it's like when they become late teens, they don't like it. Like someday when they're like 20, they're gonna go, dude, that was so fun.
I would not have a place called Campfire if I didn't go camping in the Adirondacks when I was a kid. It's just like, especially a lot of those memories too are like super faint, foggy memories, but they're there and they help build you to be the person you are.
That's right.
And yeah, man, I mean, you're right.
Thank you.
I will do it more.
But we gotta, like it's also helpful. Like that's why we do organized trips. That's why you do like your every annual camping trip, because when you put it on the schedule and you go like,
especially if there's other people to hold you accountable to it.
That's right.
You're like, we're doing this.
So I'll try to help with that, man. Yeah, because I would love to take a trip.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You got what's your kids, boy and a girl?
Boy and a girl.
That's fun. Mm-hmm. And which one's older?
Elsie, our daughter, is 6, and then Wiley Danger, he's 3.
He's a radical dude.
He's a psychopath, yeah. He's awesome.
This is awesome. Well, man, John, thank you so much for your time. Sean. It's been good to connect. And like the good news for me, everyone out there, is we have a 7:15 reservation. Yeah. So, man, thanks for being an inspiration from a distance to me. Like, and like I've learned a lot from this chat. And
right back at you, man. Thank you.
And hopefully someday we'll get you in a new Legend rig.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Hope so.
And you got the like Land Rover shop right across the street.
I know
so that's like a constant. It's a good view.
Yeah, keeps it front of mind.
Yeah,
I'll trade you some food.
Okay, I like it. All right, until next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks, John.
Cheers.
And if you're ever make a trip to Southern California, Carlsbad, and visit Campfire. And I need to check out June.
Check out June.
June. Okay. All right. Thanks.